Hello, good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today here at the UNFCCC Pavilion. For this special occasion, we will be discussing a new era of climate transparency thanks or because of advanced analytics and artificial intelligence. I want to give a warm welcome to you here present in Baku and also to those watching us live on YouTube. My name is Jessica Sanchez and I work for UN Climate Change Secretariat. It is my privilege to moderate today's discussion on this rapidly evolving subject, AI, which captures significant attention and interest, especially for those here at COP working to advance climate action. Let us begin by focusing on the key purpose of today's gathering. The Enhanced Transparency Framework, or we call it the ETF, represents a fundamental element of the Paris Agreement. The ETF ensures that we have a comprehensive and accurate information on countries' climate action. Once this data has been collected, an essential step follows: the review of all that information that a party has submitted. Here is when the ETF comes into place, as it establishes a unified review process that applies to all countries of the Convention, whether they are developed nations or developing countries. This marks a significant evolution from the previous Measurement, Reporting and Verification System, the MRV, which had distinct review guidelines for parties, often leading to varying levels of review and data reported. With this new transparency system in place, emerging technologies such as advanced technologies and artificial intelligence hold a significant promise in supporting the Secretariat and the technical expert reviewers to manage, analyze, and review the information reported to countries under the ETF. And this is why we are here today. We will explore this transformative journey and the transformative potential. Together, we will delve on how advanced analytics and artificial intelligence are actually shaping the future of transparency. We will also spotlight the inspiring collaboration between Microsoft and UNFCCC Secretariat, showing how their work is already driving progress toward the goals of the Paris Agreement. With this introduction, I will open the floor to opening remarks from UNFCCC Secretariat and Microsoft, and then we will have a dynamic conversation on the opportunities of using AI in the context of the ETF. There will be a moment to ask questions from the audience, so stay tuned. And at the end, we would like to make a picture with all of you using our Together for Transparency hashtag that has become quite popular in the venue. Without further ado, I'd like now to pass the floor to Don Cooper, Director of Transparency Division at the UN Climate Change. Don, the floor is yours.
Wow, she really is down there. It is weird looking at all of these people who I assume are not listening to me. I can see Bob Marley over there, a little bit of Beethoven on the side, some Tupac in the back. But we are here for, I don't know, it's difficult to put this into perspective. We are not launching anything. The Enhanced Transparency Framework is in full flow. It has already moved into complete implementation. What we are doing is hitting different phases. And we are fortunate that all the infrastructure, all the nuts and bolts that are required are in place when we arrive there. I believe for you business people, it's just in time is the phrase that's often used. We were able to produce the reporting tools. That was smoke and mirrors, but we managed to get there. They work exceptionally well. we were able to convince many parties of the value of submitting their biennial transparency reports. Now that's going to happen to a huge degree, especially by developing countries. We were able to put together unprecedented training initiatives at a regional, sub-regional, national, individual level to facilitate countries taking ownership of their submissions, developing them on their own, and defending them. Now, those submissions are going through the process of being reviewed in order to put together the global situation. Not the theoretical one, but the real one. The one based on what every party says is happening in their country. We are at that stage. We are very fortunate in that over the last 8-9 months, we have had a fantastic partnership with Microsoft to facilitate placing all of our gathered information in one central look, the analytical tools, for you to be able to play around with it however you wish, draw whatever national or global conclusions you wish to draw, and use it to augment your national position. It also provides that opportunity for all of you who have signed up to be review experts to be able to analyze in exactly the same way each biennial transparency report submitted. It provides tools to learn. It facilitates you not taking step by step, but jump by jump, and then running and jumping. It allows you to maximize the returns. Oftentimes, we put this in the perspective of the global community. The reality is, for virtually every party, the biggest return by a huge margin is all national. It allows your country to determine how you are progressing on your own goals, on all the subject matter you consider important. Whether that is healthcare, education, natural disasters, energy, agriculture, fisheries, forestry, you name it. Whatever you consider to be valuable, and you are investing your national dollars, euro, yen, franc, or whatever, where you are placing your resources. It allows you to determine, did it work? Did I achieve my goals? If I didn't, should I really pump another $500 million into it on the hope that something will happen? It gives you control. Yes, that's exactly the same thing you'll be reporting when you submit your next BTR. Tracking progress against the matters you consider important. And every issue you think of is climate. Either climate impacts it or it impacts climate. So you don't have to choose to match up to the agenda. The agenda already matches up to anything that you decide is key. So we are strongly looking forward to the next deliverable in our partnership with Microsoft, which will give these analytical tools in your hands to start to ensure that they maximize returns for you. And whilst we're all here, I feel the pressure of the parties to deliver. Microsoft should as well. So we are going to encourage them to move this project to even higher levels. I know I'm going to get shot for this afterwards, but consider the pressure now squarely on your shoulders that we would like to see this successful partnership grow and develop into even more grand returns for parties, that when you are here at the COP in Brazil next year, you will be able to say, yes, Microsoft delivered on the enhanced project that we asked for. No pressure. Thank you all.
Thank you, Don, for these inspiring words. Indeed, we are not talking theory anymore. We are actually in the reality. And I really like your phrase, either it impacts climate or climate impacts it. Thank you, Don. Now I would like to invite to the podium Michelle Patron, Microsoft General Manager for Sustainability Policy. Michelle, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you, everyone. It's really wonderful to be here today. I want to thank you, Don and Jesse, and really the UNFCCC for being a tremendous partner with us. And now I know what it feels like to be in the negotiating room and feel the pressure of the UNFCCC to deliver. It's very fitting that we are doing this panel today on Digitization Day here at COP. Really talk about how technology plays a key role in allowing us to achieve our climate goals, whether it's addressing climate mitigation, adaptation, and of course, transparency. And at Microsoft, technology plays a really critical role in everything we do. In fact, I think, Don, everything you said speaks to Microsoft's mission, which is to empower every organization and person to achieve more. And technology is really horizontal in this aspect, to really enable everyone to do what you do best. And we are bringing technology to bear into everything Microsoft is doing when it comes to sustainability. So when we look at our strategy for sustainability, it's three key pillars. One is getting our own house in order and managing our own footprint. The second is building technology so that our customers and suppliers can do the same. And the third is empowering global solutions, whether it's skilling, investments, and the kind of partnerships we're going to talk about today. And in every single one of those levers, in the last year, technology and AI has really helped us turbocharge that. So in our own, getting our house in order, data, transparency, technology is key for us to understand where our footprint is growing. How do we manage it? So we are using these same type of tools internally to be able to collect all the data from all the business groups, really understand where are those key wedges for us to make more progress, to purchase more carbon electricity, to bring more efficiency to our data centers, to manage our footprint so we can meet our own 2030 goals to be carbon negative, water positive, net zero waste, and protect more land than we use. We're using it with our customers, and in the same way that Don talked about every sector, each of our customers, whether they're in the finance sector, the agricultural sector, the public sector, are looking at how they're leveraging digital tools and AI to achieve their own sustainability goals. Transparency and reporting is critical to that. And of course, what we do with our global partners, including with the UNFCCC, to be able to really advance that. So I'm looking forward to the conversation today, to both sharing the progress that we've made to date, identifying opportunities for us to collaborate further, and most importantly, getting feedback and input on how we can really make this work for the ETF and to allow countries to accurately report, accurately identify where there are additional opportunities, and for us to really make progress on what this is about, which is 1.5 degrees, and protecting all of our populations from the impacts. So thank you very much for joining us today, and we'll turn it over back to Jesse.
Thank you, Michelle. Now, let's begin the conversation, and I would like to welcome our speakers to the stage. Yes. I'll introduce them in order as they seated. Vlad Truska. Vlad is Manager of Transparency Division here at the UNFCCC Secretariat. Next to him is Marcelo Rocha, Review Expert and Consultative Group of Experts member from Brazil. Michelle, you already know her. And Timothy Grosser, EY Partner for UN Partnerships. Welcome. Yes, it works? It works. Okay, so to jump straight into the conversation, I'd like to hear from Vlad, from the Secretariat. We talked about already what the Enhanced Transparency Framework is. But I want to hear from you, in what ways does the ETF present new challenges for managing, analyzing, and reviewing the climate information reported by the parties?
Okay, thank you so much, Jessica, and welcome everyone. So today, coming here, I met some people saying that I'm supposed to be happy today after we had the round of negotiations with parties on the ETF reporting tools. So after 3 years of really hard work with a lot of our colleagues involved, with our partners and so on, we managed to provide this new ETF reporting to parties. So, and we already see parties reporting, using the tools to report their information under their first biennial transparency report. So this was really challenging in the last years for the Secretariat, considering also the resource constraints and especially the complexity of this. As we mentioned here in different events, we are not talking about just some reporting of data from parties. We are talking about 200 parties. We are talking about 75 tables, something like 90 worksheets. And in some cases, for some parties, we are talking about more than 30 years of reporting. So for example, for a greenhouse gas inventory of a developed party, we talk even about like 2,000 worksheets. In this, again, that goes to a maximum, and there's some statistics that we were working on. We are talking about in some cases about 1 million, up to 1 million data points. So you can understand the amount of the data that we will be receiving from parties. And I found a quote that was interesting and made me think. It was like Mark Twain saying that data is like garbage. You need to know what you're going to do with it before you collect it. So we knew already that this will be coming to us. So this is why we started quite early with our discussions with Microsoft on this possibility of working together to make sure that the data that will be coming from parties will enter into a new data hub, data warehouse or data lake of the Secretariat. And from there, we need to support the review process, because as you know, the biennial transparency reports that the parties are submitting to the Secretariat, this is just the first step of the process. What comes next is that for each individual party, there will be a review process. And in the reviews, usually we have independent experts, some of them are also in the room, that are going to look on all the information that is coming from that party. But as I said before, for a developed country, for example, you have 30 years of data in 30 worksheets that you will need to look over in a day or two. You don't have a lot of time. So what we have done also in the past in similar exercises is to make sure that this data is coming very easy for the experts. And for that, we need analytical tools, we need review tools that, again, we have experience on that from the past, but we needed to come with all these tools into the 21st century. So as we did for the new tools for reporting that were brand new and they were built from scratch, this time for the Paris Agreement, we are doing the same now with the review tools, with the analytical tools. And that's only, let's say, the second part. So the first part is the data warehouse, and then we have all these review tools and analytical tools. But with that, we're also looking of providing the data also to the public. So that's also the last step of this big project that we are having. And others I know that will speak more about this. But again, the last part of it is to provide information that is easy accessible to the public, because again, otherwise you will have to go for each country and check all these worksheets of data that are provided according to the decisions by the parties. So that's in a nutshell our work. So we don't stop here now, even that we take this success with the ETF reporting tools and the reaction of parties that we have seen in this week here, but that's only the first success. Now that's already aside. Now we are working on the new on the new project. Thank you.
Thank you, Vlad. I think it's important because when we talk about the Paris report, we think it's a report, but actually Vlad already shed a light. It has over 1 million data points. And with this picture in mind, I want to hear now from Marcelo, which is actually the person that receives the 1 million points, because you are part of the technical expert reviewer. So you check at the country reports and start reviewing. So Marcelo, what is the most significant challenges a technical expert reviewer like yourself will face in reviewing the information that we will get from the ETF? How do you see technology as AI, as we're here, playing a role in helping you do your work?
Thank you, Jessica, and thanks for the opportunity to be here. It's a very interesting discussion, and I look forward to the systems that we're going to have to facilitate our work, because definitely we're going to need a little bit of help here. Before I continue, just to disclaim that I'm speaking on my personal capacity as a reviewer and an NFCCC member, okay? So, yes, I think this is a very important point that Vlad has made. The amount of information that we have nowadays, and we will have through the submissions of biannual transparency report, particularly from developing country parts, will be huge. And therefore, due to the time limits that we have to perform the review, any tool, any help that we can have that can facilitate the understanding of this information is very welcome. But at the same time, I want to emphasize that we as reviewers, we play by a very rigid rules. So I was very interesting. I hope you're going to explore more this, how the artificial intelligence can help us to understand the information. But at the same time, we also have to, I will not say put a boundary, but at least to establish that some questions maybe should not be allowed to be asked because it's outside of the scope of the review. So that's one thing that I think is very important to us to understand, how we can use these tools, but within the rules that have been created. Because I understand that with these tools, the possibilities of asking questions and to dig or to make analysis and comparisons is very large and very welcome. But at the same time, the reviews doesn't have that amount of liberty. It's not that I can go to a country and say, oh, I want to know this, I want to compare with this other information. No, I have to work based on rules. And of course, as Vlad said, the amount of information that I have to deal is huge. So if I can have anything that can facilitate my work within the rules that we have agreed, that is very welcome. I want to go a little bit beyond that and talk also how I foresee this helping countries, because I always say to countries, now using my CG hat, it's not about a report. It's not tick the box, I have sent my BTR. It's about the process of producing this report. You have a great opportunity to understand what you are doing, mitigation and adaptation, and what you need in terms of support. So it's a great opportunity to involve a lot of people in your country and come with an information that at the end will be a BTR. But the process of producing this information is great. And if we have also the tools available to facilitate the work of these countries in preparing the report, that is wonderful. Because then the report will not only have, I would say, a high quality, but the process of producing this report will generate a lot of benefit within the country. And once the reports are there, I am 100% sure that everybody would like to read the reports of many other countries. But it's not just 1 million data points, it's hundreds or thousands of pages. Just to give you the idea, the National Inventory Report of Brazil will most likely have almost 1,000 pages. I have to read it, okay? But I cannot read all the National Inventory Reports of all countries if all of them are thousands of pages long. So I hope I can also have some tools available so we can dig in all this, not only the quantitative information, but also the narrative that we're going to find in these documents, not only for GHG inventory, but, for example, the narrative that we're going to see about adaptation communications. I trust that will be many good documents there with thousands of pages again, because it's not something that you can just put in few lines and explain. So all of this information will be there. And if we are not able to process this information because time is limited and we have many other things to do, then I think we are losing opportunities here. So once again, I welcome this, and I hope to not use this as a reviewer, but also as a citizen that want to know better what is going on in terms of climate change, not only in my country, but in other countries as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcelo. And I think it's important to remember that, as you say, it's not checking a box. It's actually what a country is doing to produce the biennial transparency reports, the BTRs, and then what happens next. Michelle, why, I think we can be very curious at this point why actually Microsoft decided to partner with UNF Secretariat, and how can AI help with sustainable review process under the Paris Agreement?
So it's pretty simple, right? In order to make progress on climate, we need global action. And the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change Secretariat is at the core. It is what brought countries together in 1991 to create actually the framework for us to make progress, and every year is working with countries to make more progress. And so technology can play a role, and we thought technology can play a role in helping to implement the Paris Agreement and helping to empower countries to focus on what's most important, which is the policies and the mitigation, and making it easier to report. I think, 1 year into this particular partnership, we're already seeing some really interesting takeaways, which is, one, the critical role that AI can play in addressing climate change and helping countries address climate change. Two is the essential need for partnerships between different parts of society, between international organizations, national governments, subnational governments, the private sector, because we each bring different skills. You all know climate negotiations. We don't, and we shouldn't, right? The intricacies, but we know technology. Countries know what they need. Subnationals know what they need. And by working to each other's strengths, we're able to really develop the type of platform. And then the unique role that these types of partnerships, particularly with international organizations that operate and that engage with every country in the world, particularly the developing countries in Global South, enables us quickly to expand access to the benefits of these technologies. And so that's kind of at the core of our partnership with the UNFCCC. I'd like to say a little bit based on Microsoft's own experience with AI and reporting. Because I said fundamental to Microsoft achieving our goals is understanding what our footprint is, and then being transparent and reporting where we're making progress and where we have challenges. And so what we've seen is that these digital tools and AI make it easier for that teams to report. You don't always necessarily need to be now the methodology expert or the tech expert. So it really expands the group of personnel that's able to report. It improves measurement and accuracy. So it can quickly, even it's on the basic of units. One of the things that we found was that when we were getting data from different parts of the company, electricity would be in lots of different units. And so it was difficult to quickly compile what the electricity consumption, some of them were right, some of them were not right. So even doing that quick translation between units, between conversions, made it very easy. It allows us to gain insights. We're all countries, companies, non-government organizations. We spend a lot of money reporting. We spend a lot of time reporting. Are we just using that resource to put a piece of paper there, or can we actually gain insights? And that's where I think I agree, Marcelo, the amazing value of this is pulling it together and then letting it inform both what countries and companies can do and non-state actors, but also being transparent to the public about where our challenges are and where they can help as well. And then the other piece is about building, digital skills and increased access. I do want to quickly mention, Marcelo, that these models, they're developed by partners. they're developed with partners in mind. And so it's really up to the individual customer, the individual partner, what are the parameters for the models, and what is the type of data that they want it to use, what data should the models have access to, and what are the questions and those parameters. So I know that's very front of mind and in all of the different partnerships that Microsoft and I know EY and others have. So.
Thank you, Michelle. As you say, climate action is actually one of these things that cannot happen without partnerships. So thank you for explaining that. And now my last speaker, but certainly not least, Tim. I want to hear from your perspective as a global consultancy. What are the key challenges that we face when we integrate analytics and AI into the review processes that we have been talking about? And how can these technologies be effectively scaled to ensure compliance with the ETF requirements?
Great, yeah, thanks for those questions. So maybe if I just introduce our role in this program is we're the implementation partner. So we're doing, in collaboration with UNFCCC and with Microsoft, we're doing the build of these solutions, of which the first release will go live in mid-January. And if I talk about specifically your questions in really how do we get the platform with a sustainable AI, I think there's really around, we need to look at it from a scale point of view, because building AI in a small scale is relatively not that difficult, but when you get scale, that's when it really gets complex. So what we're trying is... So what we're trying to do with the AI is to make sure that it can be trusted. So if I go back a step and look at the two major use cases, there's the use cases around getting quality into making sure we have quality data inside the system, and then the second use case is helping decision making. So we'll talk about quality of data. Have all the reports been put in? What's the key metrics out of each of the reports? What's the data quality, the standardization of units, and those sorts of things. When you have a large scale of data, it's really important to have AI tools to assist you to do that in an efficient, effective way. Secondly, if you've only got 5 data points, it's pretty easy to extrapolate out what things could look like. When you've got millions of data points across multiple countries, multiple years, you need tools to help you. And so that's really what we're looking at, driving assistance to help decision making or provide more information around providing those decision makings. Now, for you to have trust in the data being quality and trust in the prediction of what things could look like, you need to have proper governance around the data and AI. And so that's really around making sure you have transparency of what the framework is, what the rules are, making sure that the model is being kept consistent by relearning. So these are classic good hygiene keeping of AI, but they're very difficult to do well, especially when you're getting into a global footprint with global data. Getting governance and testing of that across the different regions and across the different data sets is very, very difficult. So managing and keeping these things running is really important. But once you've got them and they can work for you, they're very, very impactful and powerful. And to be fair, I don't think we've fully understood all the use cases that can be provided at the moment. The way we're building it is a solid, future-proof technology platform to make sure it works very well. And then we've identified use cases for AI, we're building those, but I guess at best we've only discovered about 10 or 15% of those yet. I expect this is an evolution of the program, both as technology progresses and as the data sets and the needs, and people like Marcelo are critical in this to saying, well, if we could get more information here or less information here, that would be helpful. Because you go back to these millions of data points, we cannot do this without AI. And I think that's my key message is AI is not an optional extra when you're purchasing this product. It is an essential component because you just cannot deliver this platform without it. It won't work. And I think that's really, really mindful to know. But we have to do it in a trustful, respectful way, or else then unintended consequences are huge. Thanks.
Thank you, Tim. I think, as you say, we are, and as the title of the session, we are entering a new climate era with AI, and especially here in the climate reporting side of the Paris Agreement. Before I go to questions from the audience that you can already prepare, I'd like to ask, and it's an open question for any of you who'd like to answer this. How can cross-sector partnerships like the one that we're seeing now can help accelerate the development and the adoption of technology solutions to improve climate transparency? What are the key success for this type of collaborations? You already shed a light, Tim, on how the trust and how governance is actually very important, but maybe some other insights of you, Tim, as well. But you want to go first?
Sorry, if I can just add to that about the role of partnerships, and then I'll pass to Michelle, because what we do well, but if you look at what's needed for this program, we're only at best a third of the program, and so it's really difficult to become a total solution without everyone coming to the table, and we feel strongly about that at EY. It's core to our strategic initiatives around this space, but I do believe that we all have to come to the table and all bring what strengths we have, because it's a complex problem and no one individual has a full perspective of it.
I would add that where we have seen greater impact in our partnerships is where there is a clear mission and a clear problem statement to solve. And I think that as you all have spent the last 30 minutes talking about both the meta problem about climate and ensuring transparency and some of the near-term challenges that countries face and they're going to be reporting, and that reviewers face as they're going to be validating, and some of the concerns that users may have about some of the technology, knowing that up front and working together to really solve that is where we're going to continue to drive impact. I just want to give kind of a quick example with another UN agency where we've been working in a cross-sector partnership and really seen very early success, and that has been kind of understanding a clear problem, which is in the climate impacts to vulnerable populations. So working with the IOM, we have been looking at how to better understand where populations are moving, especially where certain migration routes are. Better understanding the models for extreme floods and extreme heat on some of those routes, and where the current kind of supplies or response of assistance available are located, and how we can better work together, knowing where the populations are, overlaying that with where the risks are and where the locations are, to better pre-position supplies for populations and on migration routes. And I just say that is so having a very, very clear understanding of each other's strengths and two, what the problem you're trying to solve allows all of us to deliver impact together.
Thank you, Michelle. Marcelo?
To follow up on this line of thought, because I think this is critical, this dialogue, not only with the reviewers, but also with governments and other stakeholders, because at the end of the day, what are the right questions that we want to make? And I think, Tim, you have mentioned, we have a couple of them already in mind, but maybe there's much more. But we have to talk about that to understand what are the needs, what are the objectives, and then have the right questions in place. Because sometimes people say, okay, how much emissions are happening, how is growing? Okay, that's straightforward, but there is much more. So I think this dialogue between the different people and stakeholders involved is critical, so we will be able to find what we want to do and what are the right questions to get to those objectives.
Yeah, just one point here, because I was thinking now on how this process changed in the last 20 years. Because if you go back in time and look at COP9 or COP10 and see how many people were and what was the people that were in the COP in terms of like the place that they were coming, they were mostly parties, they were negotiating things and so on. Now if you look at the COPs, especially in the last 5-10 years, the whole thing has changed. This is no longer a party process and the secretariat getting mandates and so on. There's a lot of things going on now, and this is the new type of working, the partnership with the private sector, with the technology companies. This is the future, and we can't not be into this if we are looking at partnerships. And it's also about the way, again, we are not going away from the let's say, the mandates that the Secretariat receives from parties, of course, we are going to stay into this. This is our role here, is to support parties. But part of it is also looking for innovative solutions in how we can address the issues that the parties are identifying. And again, I think this panel shows exactly how this is working now. And I fully agree with all of you in terms of the role of each of the actors into this kind of partnerships.
This is indeed a proof of what it is, this new climate era that we're speaking about. So now we'll open the floor to questions from the audience. We have one here, and then another one in the front, and also on my right side. This has become a very popular session.
Yeah, thank you.
If you can please say your name and your organization.
Thank you for interesting perspectives. My name is Engineer Bainomgisha from Uganda. I'd like to hear the perspectives of the panel on how we can decentralize the development of these advanced AI tools to improve trust and building capacity of individual parties in the development, as well as providing the data set. So we're not looking at parties only feeding data into the systems, but also building parties' capacities to develop AI as a working interest to improve trust and the data governance issues that were highlighted. Thank you.
I think that's a great question, because whilst you only have the power centralized and the transparency centralized, it's really difficult for engagement at the country level. It's about people, process, tools. It's just not, we don't email you out a link and all of a sudden you're experts in this topic. It's training, it's design for the local market, and it's really building that capacity. And I think that has to be seen as part of the program. It's not just a technology play, it's a transformation, and it requires capacity building in the markets. And I think that has to come with the deployment of the solutions.
Okay. We have here, gentlemen, please. Thank you.
Hi. Firstly, many thanks to the panelists. Last 6 days has been very tiring, and you guys giving us your time and giving all the insight has been really appreciated. Let me stand up. So my question basically is in threefold. My name is Kishan Janglani. I'm running the effort on World Climate Athletes, that is to drive sustainability in sports specifically, and we are developing AI models to see how sports could benefit from it, and specifically London Marathon. That is something which we are piloting on, how many athletes would be able to complete the marathon leveraging AI as such. So my question, let me jump into the question directly. The 3-level question, one is on the pricing point. So you mentioned a lot of parties would have to purchase this particular solution. Some of the developed nation would be easily able to purchase this. Developing nation would be able to purchase it to some extent. How about the SIDS and the LDCs? Who will be able to give them those solutions in hand in terms of the licensing of the tool itself, and how many people would be able to access it within those countries? That's one. From the pricing perspective, Tim, you mentioned about the solution will be implemented in January, and there's a lot of complexity, especially when it comes to AI and the data set that is involved, and we are talking about huge data set here. So the question here is, when do we see that effective insights that is going to come out from this particular EFT first reporting? Would it be 2026 when we see the right insights coming out, which would be able to make some, drive some action? And last question is about when you see the use cases that you spoke about again, Tim. The use cases are quite important in terms of downstream use cases that we want in AI. Do you think that this entire tool would be able to help inform the policy that a government will be forming as and when they generate the insight from it, let's say 2026 or 27, and planning it for 2030 or 2035 from the before future NDC perspective?
Okay. So I thank you for the question, and I think this is something that probably I should have clarified. So first of all, the reporting tools that we have provided to parties now, these are free tools. These are online tools And we had to hear the parties because one of the requirements that we have received in Glasgow in 2021 at the COP in Glasgow was to make sure that these tools can be accessed also in countries where the internet connection is not so good. So basically the way the new ETF reporting tools function is that you can also go offline. Of course, you will need to be back online to send the information and to sync the information, but you can just go and work in them, and then when you have the restored connection, everything will be synchronized. So these are free tools. These are already for parties to use. They are using. We are providing a lot of clinics and support here during the COP, and after that for the parties to report. So then the information will come to the Secretariat, and the partnership that we have is basically to make sure that the data that is coming is also being put and archived in a secure space. And based on this secure space, we will have these review tools, analytical tools, and so on, that will be provided to the experts that are reviewing, of course, again for free. And then the information hub that will also come based on this data will also be provided to the public for free. So there's no cost involved for the parties for that. Thank you.
Hello? Yes. No, I think this is a very important point, because it's not about having for free, it's how to use it. I know how to use it, and sometimes in developing country parties, we're going to find, particularly in governments, people that don't necessarily have the necessary background, I would say, to make the full use of such tools. So I think your point is very valid, a very important one. I hope people here can guide us on how we can make sure that these tools are available and can use, because otherwise we're going to have an imbalance. Certain countries or stakeholders will be able to use, to assess, and to get more of this information, and others will not. So I don't think that's the end game. We need to be everybody playing the same level of, like the marathon analogy. I mean, if I try to run a marathon against these top guys, of course, I would never do anything. So we have to put everybody in the same kind of stage to allow them to use these tools. Otherwise, it's not about just it's because it's free, but I don't really know how to use it, and then what's the point?
And maybe if I can dampen the mood a little, is AI is not a magic box, right? It helps us get better quality data. It helps us make better decisions, but it's not a magic trick, right? It doesn't solve everything, and this is this is an important thing to keep in context. The quality of the data, the capacity of the users, the capacity of the process, and the trust of the process is also very, very important. So whilst AI is a fantastic supporting tool, it's not a magic trick.
And that's why we call AI a co-pilot. Right? That's why we call AI a co-pilot. So it helps us better navigate, better understand, but it doesn't take away what individuals need to do. I just want to emphasize the skilling part of this. And we've seen that in all of our other partnership and making sure that there is a strong skilling component so that people can actually use the tool and understand how to use it in their local context and based on their own background. I want to go to the last point that you said about the insights for government policy. I can't comment on what governments will or won't do, but I can comment on what we're seeing our corporate customers do. So we have a sustainability manager that allows both Microsoft's, it allows some of our customers collect their data to be able to do both their voluntary reporting as well as increasing the regulatory reporting. And that's an important I think additional benefit of that reporting is that it really has created these internal insights where now companies are adjusting their sustainability strategy based on, and so their own internal policies based on the information that they're collecting, because they're actually seeing, I thought my supply chain was driven by this particular emissions, but actually it's over here. It's in this location, it's in this plant, it's from this component, and so we're going to prioritize this piece of our strategy and make the investments there. And I would anticipate that using the same kind of insights, governments would be able to do those. But as Marcelo did, it's based on what governments want to use it for. It's really there to help governments report. It's there to help governments share information with the public to continue to build trust. It's there for governments to help them better inform policy so they can achieve what their climate goals are.
Thank you, Michelle. I think we have a question in front.
Hi, I'm Shivika from Vasudha Foundation based out of New Delhi. We work extensively with state governments and other actors on GHG inventories. So this is a question like from what Michelle and Tim have mentioned about the insights. So basically, like I think one of the key issues we face is data accuracy, and sometimes there are gaps in data, and then we have to use some other means to sort of come to an estimate. So what sort of workarounds or inclusions for that would there be in this reporting tool?
Did you want to take that one, Vlad?
Yeah, I can. Okay, so if we are talking about the parties reporting, they need to follow very strict guidelines, exactly as Marcelo pointed out. It's not only the review guidelines, but also the reporting guidelines. And the reporting guidelines specify very clear the IPCC guidelines that needs to be. And also in these IPCC guidelines, there are ways of finding the missing data or using extrapolations and so on. And this is one of the things that the parties need to do first. We keep telling parties that the first thing that they have to do is to speak with the national statistical offices. And we know that in the countries it's not always easy because of the way the national statistical offices are funded and the resources that they have. But we keep telling also our national focal points to make sure that they have this domestic partnership with the statistical offices, because this is the official data that the parties should use. But this is not the only place, and we used to have this especially in developed countries, and that was probably one of the things that the Kyoto Protocol brought, this national system of reporting emissions, and that was the way the countries were pushed to create this system in which the reporting is coming every year. It's not that it is done once and then maybe the consultants are going and then you have to start from zero. It's the way of making these partnerships not only with the statistical office but also with different agencies and institutions in the country that might be able to provide the respective data. And I usually give this example of fluorinated gases. In, I think, 99% of the cases, this is not going to come from the statistical office because there is not necessarily an interest from the statistical office to collect this data. But for example, in many countries, this is coming from the agency that is involved in the exports or the imports for the country. You will find in the customs, you will find this information. So it's about making sure at the domestic level that you found all the ways to get this data. And of course, there are this extrapolation or interpolation methods that can be used for that. Marcel.
No, just to emphasize, we have to play by the rules. And for the reporting is the IPCC guidelines, and I think Vlad has explained very well. And you said it's not a magic tool. So if the information doesn't exist, it's not artificial intelligence that will create the information. If I don't have my animal population of the 90s, artificial intelligence will not be able to tell me, okay, that was the amount of cows that you had in your country in that particular year. I don't think we're going to get that easy. So I think we have to always keep in mind that there are some things that we can do, but we have gave flexibility to developing country parties to report and to highlight, say, okay, I cannot do this, so I'm starting here. And of course, with time, maybe we will be able to fulfill these gaps. But some of them exist, and I don't think artificial intelligence can create the information from nowhere.
There are very clear rules that the enhanced transparency framework needs to follow, and that's for the IPCC. As other organizations look to try and fill the gaps, there are interesting opportunities that are available, and it could be that subnationals or nationals even go to those locations. Part of the work that we were doing with other agencies of the UN is that census data in some countries is 15 years old. And it really doesn't accurately reflect what's happening on the ground. So creating a global data set with partners such as Planet, which is a satellite company with a number of institutions, academic institutions around the world, so that organizations can leverage that for theirs. And then a lot of these efforts are then uploaded to centralized locations like GitHub, so that those can be available for entities to use, not within the ETF, but outside of the ETF. I think I do want to point out that with animals now, we have some really interesting opportunities to get a better sense of what is happening inside places that humans shouldn't go and don't go, but inside the forests, right? To get a better understanding of what's happening, we're using not just visual types of artificial intelligence tools, but acoustics to really listen to what's happening, particularly in the Amazon, working with local organizations in Colombia and now in Peru and increasingly in Brazil, getting a better picture so that those national governments have an understanding of the health of the forest, of the health of biodiversity. So AI is helping in those areas, and there are places to leverage that, even if it's outside the ETF framework.
The point was about past information. The past is the past, right? So what was the animal population 20 years ago? That's information that is very hard to collect because, as you said, some of these statistical offices, they did a kind of, a job in the past, but for whatever reasons, we don't have the information anymore.
Thank you. Just to summarize a little bit of this very, very insightful conversation that we had today, I'd like to remember Don's word at the beginning that the benefit of transparency is actually for the countries. Transparency really sheds a direct light on what the country actually needs. Without transparency, without data, we wouldn't know what we're talking about. Then I'd like to remember, Michelle, you said that transparency answers the questions, where are we and where do we want to go? Vlad, you said 1 million data points that we continue to say, but you also shed a light that data without a plan is garbage. So we need data, data, data. Marcelo, you that received the data said that the reviewers have rigid rules. It's not like every reviewer decides how they will come to conclusions, but actually AI facilitates your job. And Tim, you said that actually, yes, proper governance on how we use AI is just the beginning. We will see how it will deploy, but with good partnerships, we will make sure that we go in the right path. So I would like to ask you for a round of applause for my speakers. What a great session. And now we will take the picture of the Together for Transparency hashtag. Thank you all for coming and have a great COP.